Welcome back to 310 to Left, brought to you by your New England Ford dealers and F-Series, America's best-selling truck for 48 years, and the official truck of the Boston Red Sox. Tom Caron remains an international man of mystery, so I'm Alex Speier of the Boston Globe, joined this week by Julian McWilliams of CBS Sports. Julian, great to see you. How are you feeling about the idea that in mid-September, Red Sox-Yankees this weekend kind of matters?
Right, Alex, and it hasn't mattered, it seems like, in years, and I think this is sort of what you want. Right, from a coverage standpoint, from a city standpoint, from September baseball in Boston, we haven't seen that in a while. I know you've seen it a lot in your days. I haven't seen it much.
You're calling me old?
No, I'm just saying you have institutional knowledge, Alex, of the Red Sox and the plight, in addition to the flight. So hopefully, for the Red Sox' sake, they feel as if they're in flight mode.
Well, it is an interesting time. We'll dive in a little bit more on the Red Sox-Yankees series to come. We're also going to be joined by Jeff Passan of ESPN, who always has great insight, also institutional knowledge. He's probably younger than me, though, which is a bummer. But before we get into that, Julian, let's kind of think about where the Red Sox are entering this weekend series against the Yankees. So the two teams are tied in the standings, right? They're both 3 games behind the Blue Jays. AL East still in play with 15 games to go, or do you think that that's a little bit too tall an order for the Red Sox at this juncture?
It's so tough, right, Alex? I mean, it just seems like you're with not even with just losses, but just the loss of games, and certain like just losing games from going to 15 to 14 to 13. You're just that more behind. I would say it's still in play. I think particularly through this weekend, we'll see what happens, but ultimately, I think the Blue Jays pull away with it, and I know the Yankees are 3 games back, but they're really 4 because they don't have they don't have, what is it called, the tiebreaker, right? Yeah. And so I think if you're looking at that, and I think this is the Blue Jays division right now. When I just look at this team, they just seem to be Vlad just seems to be on another level right now in terms even defensively. He just seems locked in. Running out like ground balls. He beat that ground ball out the other night, and then that sort of led to that run. I know the runner got the third. So there's still time, but I think right now I think it's the Blue Jays who ultimately couldn't come out on top.
There are a couple of interesting variables to consider there. One is that the Red Sox have the most difficult schedule of any of the teams remaining, right? They have the Yankees, they have the Blue Jays, they also finish with the Tigers. So they actually have some good teams on the horizon, whereas the Yankees get through this weekend and it is just coasting. They'll get a couple series against the Orioles. They get every remaining game that they have after this series is against sub-500 teams. Blue Jays are also in a pretty good spot when it comes to strength of schedule, so that probably does come into play. But I think that, to your point, like there are some head-to-head matchups here that have a chance to offer some impact in the division, and the Red Sox and Yankees is obviously part of it, as well as that Red Sox series in Toronto in that second to last series of the season. So we'll see if those games are still relevant at that point, right? Like that's, you're getting down to the 6 games left, and it's possible that there will be a lot at stake, and it's possible that there will be not a lot of stake when you get there. But the Red Sox team that will be going there, it's interesting to take stock of exactly who they are. So there's been a lot of churn right now on the back of the rotation. We have right now, Dustin May is now on the injured list. So trade deadline pickup, the Red Sox signature trade deadline pickup there. Not exactly made the expected contributions. So we've seen Peyton Tolley have 1 great start and then 2 not great starts, in which he's been pretty limited. And then Connolly Early showing up in Sacramento. And having a ridiculous start. What do you make of the back of the Red Sox rotation, and how important is it for them to figure that out, if at all?
I think it's a concern in the short term, right? I think where you're looking at just the rest of the season, right? I think that they're probably going to have to mix and match. Look, if this happened in August, Alex, where like say right after the deadline, I would probably be more concerned. But right now, I think it's probably a concern in the short term, but I do believe the Red Sox can ultimately get to the postseason where I think you can probably, hopefully, lean on 3 starters, Bayo, Giolito, and Crochet to get you through. But I do think depth matters, right? And I think particularly with this team that hasn't been through it in the postseason, I think that's certainly a concern for mine. It's not like, they're the San Francisco Giants of old where they had Bumgarner and Lincecum and those guys, and it was just like night, lights out. Like it's not that type of thing, right? I think you have guys that are sort of still, even Crochet, still trying to get his feet wet. Like you see him sometimes, his misses now seem to be bigger misses, right? And I think that's a sign of sort of the fatigue setting in, even despite the 10K, despite the 11K, despite the no runs allowed. When you're seeing his misses being like this wide, then you start to be like, what does that necessarily mean? And particularly when you get to the playoffs and, you're a little bit tighter, right? Naturally, it's more intense. It's human nature for those things to fall into place. And where you just certainly have to just be locked in on just your mechanics. And when you don't have those, and when you're fatigued, that seems to be a problem. So I'm looking for this team to make the playoffs, but I definitely think this is probably a concern more so in the short term than in the long term.
It was interesting you mentioned Crochet to see the outing in Sacramento because, obviously the degree of difficulty against the A's lineup is different than it had been in some of the prior starts. But the thing that he was able to do was really kind of execute in on the glove side of the plate, which is something he talked about after that poor start against the Guardians, that he had talked to Pete Fatsi, the hitting coach, who said, well, if I were facing you, I would be looking out over the plate, looking for something that's kind of angling in on that outer half of the plate. And I credit Crochet with having made an adjustment between the two starts. It'll be very interesting to see whether or not he's able to build upon that in the outing against the Yankees on Sunday night, because that's the team that has the best has the best offense in baseball, at least in terms of runs per game over the course of the season. But what did you see from Tolley, and what have you seen from Tolley? What were your impressions of early? Like, I think that seeing a kid getting 11 punch outs and 19 swings and misses in his debut is like, that was interesting. Yeah. But we also saw the Peyton Tolley debut that was backed up by outings that have not been as good. So I'm curious what you have seen from those two.
I think a large part of it is secondary stuff, right? I think when you're looking at the secondary stuff, it's not necessarily there yet. It's interesting. I believe it was McCutcheon who commented and was like, yeah, it's a good he has a really good fastball, but and he's like, it's
not sales secondary stuff, was what he said, right? Sales
secondary stuff. And it was just like, okay, you can sort of sit fastball. And I think that's what the Arizona Diamondbacks did, and particularly in that game. Well, obviously in that game that they played them in Arizona, and then the A's to a lesser extent. I mean, look, the A's, that's a really good lineup, right? I mean, just by the number standpoint, obviously you have Kurtz in there. Wilson's been able to produce. But I just look at him and his ability not to have necessarily the secondary stuff, and it just seems like he's relied on his fastball. He's been able to do that in the minor leagues for a long time. It's an elite fastball, but I just think it concerns me if you're going to go into the postseason with that guy and put him in a rotation and say, and I don't necessarily think that Red Sox is going to do that per se, but have him in a rotation and saying, okay, I'm just here's my fastball, hit it, right? I don't necessarily think that's going to work in the postseason the way it works in the regular season. I just think his secondary stuff just needs a lot of work, and the fastball is elite. We know that, and I think he's a guy that loves to compete. He obviously doesn't he carries himself lightly, which I think is a big thing, particularly in this market, to be able to do that. Remind yourself that it's just a game. He reminds me that it's just a game by just watching him pitch.
Totally.
And I think he definitely has it within here to be able to do it. I don't know if he has the experience enough to be able to be a guy that you can rely on totally in the postseason, the way he and expect him to look the way he did in his first start.
Yeah, I do wonder whether or not there's a path for him to be he can make an impact if he's just fastball cutter. He just needs one secondary pitch, right? If he's able to get the cutter to the edges of the plate, then he's in a pretty good spot to at least be a reliever for them in the postseason. Yeah. We'll see whether or not but that's the thing about such a young pitcher who has so little big league experience or so little professional experience. You're like figuring stuff out on the fly. It makes for really significant error bars. Like it's the K-Rod phenomenon where like this guy could be an utterly dominant force in the postseason, or he could be completely irrelevant, which also happens sometimes with guys with very little experience. But that's kind of the state of the back end of the rotation what about the lineup? Like, we saw the Red Sox really struggle, no homers in those first 4 games without Roman Anthony, and then they seem to get into a better spot in the absurd baseball environment of Sacramento, which I guess you should get into a better spot offensively when you're playing in Sacramento. Do you think that they're kind of making it to the other side of their struggle? Like, do you think that the lineup has found its rhythm and and kind of defined its responsibilities without Roman Anthony, or do you think it's still kind of searching a bit?
I think it's searching, and for me, not having Roman Anthony in the lineup just made me like, wow, this kid is really good, right? You take him out the lineup, and you're just like, okay, it's Bregman who's been struggling, and I think that's a big guy for me that needs to get going. If they're going to do anything, is Bregman. I mean, you look at his stats from just 3 weeks ago to now, it's sort of unprecedented that he has a 834 OPS and just dropped from like 916 to 834. I remember we went to New York and it was over 900. So I think when you're looking at this team, it just doesn't seem to be a lineup. And by the way, like, Wilyer Abreu's not there either, right? And that was a guy that was able to give them at least a little bit of slug. We talked about his sort of regression and chasing and hitting everything to the pull side. But he always had those like mini heaters where he can at least win you two to 3 games, it seemed like. And the slug matters. And I don't necessarily know if they have that enough, especially from the right-handed side of the plate. Well, Trevor Story's been doing a pretty good job. And I think that's one guy that you can look to. And I think he's been a difference maker this season. However, I'm still looking and I'm just saying, okay, it's just not that deep of a lineup. And my goodness, like Ceddanne Rafaela went from hitting 279 in the first half to 188 in the second to now down to 188 in the second half, and an OPS of 695. I mean, that wasn't something I necessarily expected considering how good he looked in the first half of the season. It just goes to show you just never know, Alex, with all this. Like, it's just
it's a streaky team, right? Like, and the one guy who so you identify the guys who had been really high floor guys. Anthony, obviously, because of the on-base ability. Abreu, whether Abreu turns the dials, but it seems like he's in some ways a steady contributor, whether it's, at times it's through the on-base and controlling the strike zone. At times it's just supplying a consistent power threat where, the depth of the slumps is kind of minimized. Trevor Story, streaky guy, although, man, this has been remarkable. Before we go to break, I do want to get your, what we've watched from Trevor Story since the beginning of June, I did not know if that was going to be possible again in his career. I know that he put in an incredible amount of work in order to be a really good version of himself again. How do you describe what this 3.5 months of Trevor Story has been?
I'm so happy that I got to watch it, Alex, because all the reporters from Colorado were like, you haven't seen Trevor Story. And they were right. I hadn't. And I think this might be the closest thing to Trevor Story when he was, 25, 26 years old. And to me, I think he's the most important person to that ball club. And if they didn't have Trevor, I don't think they would be in this situation. Yes, we talk about Roman Anthony. Yes, we talk about Alex Bregman's contributions. But his ability at shortstop is something that I haven't seen at this level that I've covered on a day-to-day basis. He's just that elite of a shortstop. But then you add in the pop where he's hitting, 24 homers, 20 for 27 in stolen bases. He's such an efficient player. And it seems like he's through all these injuries, it seems like he's turned the switch to say where he's become more calculated and shrewd in his decision-making and his swing decisions a lot of times. What he can hit, what he can't hit, when he's going to steal, when he's not going to steal, when he's going to dive, when he's not going to dive, right? What play he can make, what play he can't make. It just seems like every decision he's made from June on has been the right decision. And I'm so glad I've been able to watch it.
Really cool. Well, Julian, we will be right back after the break. We're going to dive in on Red Sox Yankees for the weekend after this message from the New England Ford dealers.
3:10 to left is presented by your New England Ford dealers who've been taking everyone out to the ball game at Fenway Park for decades. Catch Ford next time you're at Fenway, including in the Ford Clubhouse, a full-service bar perfect for bringing your lineup together and for recording our live edition of 3:10 to left. It's all brought to you by your New England Ford dealers and F-Series, America's best-selling trucks for 48 years and the official truck of the Boston Red Sox.
And we are back at 3:10 to left, brought to you by your New England Ford dealers. Julian, we got into into some things Red Sox centric, but the thing on the horizon is Red Sox and Yankees. And, these two teams are tied in the standings. They have the two best records in the American League since the trade deadline. I'm not sure that everyone would realize that the Red Sox had the best record in the American League since the trade deadline. Is that true? Yeah, 22-15. And the Yankees are, I think, one game behind them in that time. This is the American League this year, but the Yankees, the Red Sox, it's felt like they've been 2 steps forward and 1 back, but that's still ultimately steps forward. The Yankees have been really strange because at times they'll go through a week where they look like the best team in the American League, and then what on earth have we just seen with this bullpen that was supposed to be turned into a late innings Death Star at the trade deadline and then just got utterly obliterated by the Tigers over the last few days?
Yeah, I mean, Alex, they brought in Luke Weaver when they were up like 8-1, and he gave it up. And he gave up like 3 runs, I think, including a 2-run jack last night. And then they brought in a position player, right? Like Luke Weaver, who was like the closer of this team, right? A guy that was dominant for multiple innings last year, and even in parts of this year. Devin Williams, who's been this guy that's just seems like he just can't pitch in these moments. I don't know. He's been broken since the Pete Alonso thing, Alex. I'm just looking at this team and I'm like, I don't know what you're going to get, because I look at one thing with their starting rotation, which I think is still solid relatively.
Yeah,
I think it's
certainly
a really good
Fried and
rotation.
Rodon, right?
Yeah, but even with Rodon, he's always been a guy that throws a lot of pitches, right? And he's typically out by the 5th or 6th inning, it seems like, or at least by the 6th inning at least. And he never really goes into that 7th or 8th inning. With the Yankees, their thinking was, okay, we can probably make the game shorter with our bullpen. But now Rodon is leaving. He left the game last night with a 2-0 lead, right? And they lose 11-1. And it 18 earned runs in the past 2 games. This team is concerning. I don't know what to make of them. Even their at-bats where, like you said, they look like the best team. To me, they look like the best lineup in baseball for stretches, right? Where I think last week where they were hitting all the home runs. But again, that's the thing we always say with the Yankees. When they don't hit homers, they don't seem to win. Don't understand how to win baseball games. So it's the bullpen, though. It's just been a totally complete bizarre thing to me.
Yeah. I think that everyone, when they got Bednar and when they got Duvall and just loaded up at the trade deadline, I think
Duvall. I forgot about him.
Yeah, right. Well,
he pitches in garbage time.
Yeah, it's incredible. And then other guys who they acquired end up being optioned days later, right? Jake Bird ends up being completely forgotten about within a week of his trade acquisition. So what a weird trade deadline this was in terms of figuring out the lingering impact. But nonetheless, you point out the Yankees have that major league leading 5.2 runs per game in their offense, but also they've scored 11 runs in their last 5 games. And part of that, Aaron Judge has not been, Aaron Judge has been really good since coming back from that UCL injury. But the power numbers haven't been the same. He's getting on base a ton. The strikeout and walk numbers are roughly equivalent. And boy, his year overall is just absurd. When you look at the Baseball Reference page and see the italicized black ink, it's like, what on earth is this player? This is like Barry Bonds stuff when you see leading the majors in average and OBP and slug and, just everything, walks, of course. But to you, has he looked like the same hitter since he's come back from injury?
No. And we talked about that with Story too, when he had the elbow thing, where it's it's kind of hard to get your swing off. I think there's been a lot of focus on him with the throwing aspect, which I think is a real concern if you're the Yankees, because your right fielder can't throw.
They have special cutoffs. Yeah.
Right? And the other night when they played the team, he made his first throw home, probably 3 or 4 games ago. Well, he could have. The guy was going to be they were playing the Blue Jays. Yeah, they played. And the ball was hit to right field, and he would have gotten the guy anybody with an arm would have gotten the guy at home plate, but he threw the ball into the cutoff man. You're like, And then he lets go say, okay, so what's the other option? Oh, Giancarlo Stanton, the guy that sort of takes a slow jog to balls in the gap, or the guy where the Red Sox, it seemed like you were just like, you felt bad for him, right? They just kept going first to third on like routine ground balls. So I'm looking at Judge and I'm saying, okay, the swing just doesn't look the same, right? It doesn't have its same level of oomph in it. The ball doesn't have it. It almost seems like he's trying to. He's not pulling the ball. It seems like as much, right? And I remember when Judge had the oblique thing a few years ago. He set his sights on right center a lot. It seems like he's back to doing that, and that just tells me it's a guy who's injured, right, and is playing through this injury and hoping that he can drag his team to the postseason, and hopefully, in his case, getting them back to a World Series. But I think there is some concern for me in just looking at his swing. It's not the same swing.
It's interesting that you point out the element of using right field more often, right? Because his surge into being a 62 homer hitter was in part because he made a decision to be a little bit more aggressive with the contact point, do more pulling of the ball, and he had come up as that extraordinary with that extraordinary power to right center. But it was really when he opened up to all fields that he took his game to the next level as a power hitter, which is difficult to say because he had already been in such an absurd level prior to that. But to me, that also is a question of where are you playing the New York Yankees? If Aaron Judge is getting to his power, hitting the ball to right field and right center, like how different a team are they to face in Yankee Stadium versus another place, which is where it gets to the importance of this coming series when the two teams are tied in the standings. Red Sox, of course, have the tiebreaker, but you're maybe playing for home field advantage in that wild card round, in maybe a 4 or 5 seed round. And if that's the case, no one in the American League is good on the road. Like there are 3 teams in the American League with winning records on the road, and no one with a winning record that's won more than 5 more games that's more than 5 games over 500 on the road. All of the 7 contenders in the American League are really good at home. 10 plus games over 500 at home. So for me, like that's the crux of this. How important is it to get home field advantage for the Red Sox to get home field advantage from the Yankees for the wild card round?
Alex, just a sidebar, just the fact that you mentioned that like no team is good on the road in those numbers, it tells me this is just like a pillow fight. It's not even in a fight. This is just all a pillow fight to the end. It's not a battle of the American League. It's a mid-off, it seems like. Right? But anyways, to get to your question, what was it again? I forget.
How important is home field advantage in the wild card round?
How important is home field? Yeah, it's. I think it's very important. Obviously, for every team, it seems like it doesn't seem like any home team will win. It might be the situation from the Astros when we move on to the later rounds with the Astros and Nationals from. No team won on the road that year. I think this is extremely important, particularly in the Red Sox case, because I look at even somebody like Jarren Duran, who I think is a catalyst for this team, right? And I think where they're going well, it seems like he's been that spark. He's a different hitter at Fenway than it seems like anywhere else, right? He has the ability to get the triples, the ability to hit the ball off the wall in left field. Like we've always talked about the left-handed batters having an advantage at Fenway because of, they can set their sights sort of on left field, which opens up the rest of the field. I think it's just totally important, particularly when you don't have Roman Anthony in the lineup, right? And I don't know when he's going to come back, but I just think having him there, having a team in its home ballpark is so important. You get into the crowd. I mean, could you imagine a Fenway crowd, Alex? At this point, we haven't seen the playoffs in 4 or 5 years, since 2021. And this crowd is going to be hungry. I wouldn't want to be any opposing team coming to this situation. And on the contrary, I wouldn't want to be the Red Sox going in the Yankee Stadium either, because that place gets really loud as well. And this, again, we have a lot of guys who haven't been there in a while, or haven't been there at all, or maybe just Alex Bregman has experience of playing, they're playing in the postseason all 9 of his years. But there's a lot of players again who haven't done this before. Now, what better place to be than in your home ballpark?
Yeah, I mean, you bring up the 2021, like that home environment for Red Sox Yankees that was a one game winner take all wild card game, but that was absolutely electric, probably as lit up as Fenway had been certainly since 2013, and quite possibly since kind of the 03 to 07 height of the chaos. So I do think that there is a thing about playing on at home in the postseason that could be a difference maker. And then you do mention Duran. You're absolutely right. He's actually been making really good contact when he's been putting the ball in play recently. But the balls that would be banging off the wall in Arizona, they were kind of dying on the warning track in a number of instances. Bregman is someone who he can really have the switch flipped up if he's playing at Fenway Park as opposed to, Yankee Stadium. It's going to be more difficult. Cedar Rafaela, we know how much his swing, his kind of pull heavy approach is geared towards playing at Fenway, in what Alex Cora has talked about as taking the corner threes as right-handed hitters is Fenway Park. So it's a pretty interesting dynamic. It does add a level of consequence to these games, although I guess we should ask, should we take it for granted that both the Red Sox and Yankees are going to be in the postseason at this point, and it's just playing for seeding and in wild card versus division?
I feel that way, Alex. Right? I'm just looking around. I'm like, okay, the Rangers, they lost Nate Eovaldi for the year. Marcus Semion's been injured. They just seem like they're just dragging to the finish line. It's crazy that they're only like a game and a half out of a wild card.
Yeah, they're playing better than anyone in the American League over the last week. It's wild. Yeah,
I
have no idea how.
Yeah, I don't either. And then I'm looking at the Mariners in the sort of I know the tailspin that they had. I know they've been playing better as of late, but I just think the Red Sox and Yankees have been playing consistent enough baseball this year in this pillow fight to be able to get away with making the playoffs. And and as we've seen in years past, and Alex, with this new system, you just got to get in, right? And then it's a team that's hot, right? It's no longer necessarily like the best team wins the best out of 7. No, it just seems to be the hot team that gets in and can make a run. 2020, I mean, the Braves when they won the World Series, the Diamondbacks when they made it to the World Series, right? You're looking at it now and you're saying, okay, the Guardians could have very well made the World Series last year, right? And now we're looking at it, that team's not going to make the postseason. So it's just a matter of getting in. And if I were a betting man, I'm not a betting man at all. I would put my money on the Red Sox and Yankees to be in the postseason facing each other, which is, it just seems like it's just made to happen, Alex.
I'm sorry. I've been kind of distracted by the thought of what a Red Sox Yankees pillow fight would look like, particularly if you had Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton swinging pillows. There would be feathers everywhere. It would be like it would look like snow or something. Those pillows would be obliterated.
A lot of concussions, Alex. I wouldn't want to be a part of it.
So the pillow fight is not to be underrated in terms of its intensity. But yeah, that's going to be on tap. I am intrigued to see. The Red Sox obviously have their big 3 lined up for starting against the Yankees this weekend with Giolito, Bayo, and Crochet. So that's going to be an interesting on tap. We'll talk more about Red Sox and Yankees after we get to the break, and we'll talk about it with Jeff Passan of ESPN. Welcome back to 310 to Left, and there's another face in the middle of our screens. Here's Jeff Passan of ESPN, who's joining Julian McWilliams and me. Jeff, we have, we're in the home stretch on this very strange baseball season in which there has not been a lot of great baseball, or at least not a lot of great baseball teams. The American League, which is kind of where the focus is at, entering the weekend of Red Sox and Yankees, and ESPN doing Sunday Night Baseball. There is no team in the American League that's on pace for more than 93 wins. Care to venture a guess as to when the last time was that a league in a non-shortened season didn't have a team to win more than 93 games?
I was just going to say, I was hoping you would give me the cop out and I could go for 81. Oh man. I'm going to guess it's been at least 50 years. I should know the answer to this question.
No, it's great. You almost nailed it. It was 1974. That was the last year. So 51 years since there was last in America, since there was last a league that had in which the best record was not better than 93 wins. So that's where we're at. What do you see in baseball this year? How would you describe what's happened in terms? We've kind of moved past the here are the three great teams. Where are we at and why?
Well, I find it interesting, Alex, that we've moved past that, considering coming into this season, we all believed there was going to be a 125-win Dodger team, right? And I can say that's slightly tongue-in-cheek, but there's some truth to that. It was like coming into this season, oh my God, the Dodgers are such an unstoppable juggernaut. What are we going to do to make baseball okay again? And it turns out baseball tends to monitor itself. Baseball tends to balance itself out. And I hate pulling away like broad takeaways from just one season. But one thing that I think is happening right now across the sport is that we're in that place where the sabermetric revolution is mature at this point. And by mature, I mean, teams have had a couple decades now to try and figure out, okay, what are these numbers telling us and what are we taking away from them? And I think what's happened in a lot of places is that they're all thinking the same. And they're all valuing guys the same. And it doesn't matter if you have a small payroll or a large payroll. It doesn't matter if you have a big market, a small market, or somewhere in between. Like, there are ways to go out there and put together winning baseball teams. And the ability to separate oneself from others does tend to come with money, for example. But the Mets have been banged up this year. The Dodgers have been banged up this year, and injuries are the great equalizer. And so I think at the end of the day, we have a bunch of good teams who, because there are so many other good teams, just don't look all that much better. And there's no great team right now. And personally, as somebody who adores going into an October where I don't feel like I have any clue who's going to go and win the World Series, this has been a great season.
Oh,
go ahead.
There we go, Julie.
You hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. No. To that point, do you feel like baseball needs like this gladiator, right? Since there's really been no do you feel like the sport needs that from an entertainment perspective, from galvanizing certain different fan base that might not be your everyday fan? Where do you stand on that? And it's particularly this season where you're saying there won't be a team that win, or is not on pace to win more than 93 games.
Record notwithstanding, Julian, don't you think that's the Dodgers right now? Don't you think they're the enemy, they're the bully, they're the team that not only goes out and signs Tanner Scott, but the next day they go out and get Roki Sasaki. And I understand people are looking at Roki Sasaki with a great level of schadenfreude right now, because it's like, oh my God, the Dodgers got this superstar for $6 million. Oh, but he's a AAA. So maybe there is some balancing out in the world. I think with Ohtani there under the contract that he is as team friendly of a deal as you're going to find. And frankly, with just all the things that the Dodgers do well, they to me are the evil empire to general fans right now. And they're not having a great regular season, but I'm not sure that matters a whole lot to them. The Dodgers play for October. And to me, any team that judges itself not by success in the regular season, not by division titles, but by championships, it feels like they are inherently that kind of team that you're talking about.
One of the interesting things with the season is there's been this kind of leveling effect. Like I think of it a little bit as the 2013 to 2015 window, where in succession you had the Red Sox winning the World Series, even though they were in a cycle where they weren't really a good team year over year, right? But they had the one season where they did put it all together. 2014, you had the Giants and Royals World Series. 2015, you actually had the Royals winning the World Series. Does this open up, does the flattening of the landscape, assuming that the Dodgers aren't the juggernaut that they look like they might be on paper, is that a thing that gives hope to to the great middle, to the middle of the country and to the smaller market teams?
Well, as somebody who grew up in Cleveland and lives in Kansas City now, the middle of the country is dear to my heart. And so winning baseball happening here, I love it. But I'm not even going to look at this like a geographical thing, even though a lot of those smaller market, lower payroll teams are in the central divisions. I'm just going to look at it like a big money versus smaller money. And what the Milwaukee Brewers are doing this season has been incredible. They've been by far the best team in Major League Baseball. And, the Phillies have gained on them in recent weeks. But still, the Phillies are not the version of themselves that we thought they were going to be without Zach Wheeler for the rest of the season, without Trey Turner until presumably the playoffs. So what Milwaukee has done is the same thing I think that Tampa has done. It's the same thing that at times Cleveland has done. And amid all of the discussion, guys, that we're going to hear over the next year between now and when the collective bargaining agreement expires December 1st, 2026, I think the most prevalent thing is going to be conversation about a potential salary cap. And beyond the question of whether a salary cap actually would help the smaller market teams, is it the sort of thing that inherently gives parity to a sport where it might not exist? I think we might be talking about a false premise here, because while the World Series winners, which admittedly is what you play the game for, while the World Series winners since Kansas City have all been larger market teams or higher payroll teams, the competitive landscape of MLB, and look at that on the bottom there, the landscape of MLB. I think that was I think that was one of those things where I didn't realize that I was reading something and saying it at the same time.
Or maybe you manifested it with our producers. Like there was,
I am a poor manifester, start to finish. I think the competitive landscape of Major League Baseball, the notion that it's going to change demonstrably with the implementation of salary cap, I just have a hard time believing that based on where it is right now. And yes, it is 100% true that every competitive balance tax paying team in 2025 is in line to make the postseason. That it's hard to argue with that. So it's clear, like when you have money, you tend, or not when you have money, when you're willing to spend money, you tend to finish up at the top. But we can't ignore the reality that this game can be played by front offices and by players on the teams such that those smaller market, lower revenue teams do in fact have competitive ability and can go out there and conceivably win a World Series. And it's why I think, listen, as much as I love talking about the American League, I've lived in American League cities my whole life. The National League to me is the most interesting litmus test this year, because the National League has the Dodgers, who have just been playing for October or to get to October, and the Brewers, who have figured out, not just this year, but in recent years, the regular season, and are looking to make October their playground. And there are all kinds of questions whether they'll be able to do so.
Jeff, so I'm sort of hearing from you, like, do you feel like, just based on where the season is, right? And you mentioned parity, and I think you mentioned, the maturation of sabermetrics and analytics. Does that give way for ownership and sort of and teams and GMs and front office people, baseball operations people to sort of do the bare minimum just to get in, because they know the fact that, hey, if we get in, we can be a team like the Arizona Diamondbacks where we go on this run, right? Is that a part of it as well?
I hope not. It's a totally fair question. And I think I personally don't think that I have seen a team actively say, okay, our projections have us at 86 to 88 wins now. We're in the safe territory. But in the offseason, when they're weighing making that 9-figure signing, that they're saying to themselves, okay, well, what's the difference? Like, we gotta win an extra series. We gotta win the wild card series. Okay, well, we have 2 really good starting pitchers, and whatever this does to our rotation for the next round, we can weather that. At the trade deadline, they're asking themselves that same question. Are we willing to move prospect capital to go out and get a guy who can make us marginally better? And is marginally better something that we should be pursuing when we're already at the level where we're comfortable getting the lottery ticket? And that's what a playoff bid is, Julian. It's a lottery ticket. Nobody knows how October is going to go. You can have an October like last year where you have the two best teams in each league playing one another in the World Series. And you can have an October like the year before where you have a 5 seed versus a 6 seed. And I mean, that's baseball. That's randomness. And while I'm trying to think of this logically, right? If I were running a team, would I have that same perspective too? And I would have a difficult time, I think, not at least taking that into consideration. But at the same time, I would also like to believe that competitiveness would take over. And this is like an ownership versus front office thing, right? I think the front office is 99 times out of 100, that one time being okay, if we spend now, maybe we don't get to later. But I think the front office is 99 times out of 100 are going to say, you know what? Hell yeah, I want that extra player. Of course I want to go after a guy who's going to make my roster better. But owners, yeah, I think it's not an unreasonable thing to think that owners look at what October is like, how October works, and say to themselves, why, when my championship pursuit can be such a crapshoot, am I going to go in as excessively as some of these other owners do? And to me, I was talking about litmus tests before. It's a litmus test for ownership right there. Are you willing to go to an uncomfortable place in pursuit of a championship? If you are, then you are an owner to whom others should aspire. If you are not, then you should question why you are doing this and what you're in this for. Is it for the investment? Or is it for the love of the game and the pursuit of a championship and the competitiveness that I would like to believe is inherent in everybody who owns a baseball team?
The grimness of the word efficiency in modern baseball is that it's exactly what you guys are talking about. Like, efficiency is doing the most, but doing the bare minimum to achieve the most, right? So, like, great job winning the World Series on a $120 million payroll is applauded, as opposed to great job winning the World Series is an intrinsic good, right? Like, it's
Alex, can I jump in here, because I think there's an important point about this that is often missed. Being efficient and being aggressive are not mutually exclusive. You are capable as an organization of doing both. And I think the Red Sox are going to be the test case for this in modern baseball. Efficiency, to me, it involves all sorts of things. But when we boil it down to the end of the day, the most efficient thing you can do in baseball is draft or sign and develop players who for the next 3 years are going to be paid $800,000 or so dollars. And taking advantage of that window in which you have all of these low-priced players, because eventually, some of them are going to need to get paid. But when you have the time to go and try and complement them with the Alex Bregmans of the world and with other big-ticket free agents, I think efficiency is great until it gets in the way of your competitiveness. And if you're willing to do both, like the Mets have, like the Yankees have been, like the Dodgers have been, if you're willing to do both of those things, you can turn into a juggernaut. I mean, is that not the key to the Los Angeles Dodgers? I understand we look at all their free agent signings, Ohtani and Freeman, and trading for Mookie Betts and getting him locked up. But when it comes down to it, the Dodgers would not be where they are right now if they hadn't developed as many of the players that they have on their big league rosters they did through their system and through really canny trades to get guys into the organization. And everyone should aspire to be the Dodgers right now. I know most teams do not have the money to operate in that realm, but if you're the Red Sox right now, if you're the Phillies right now, the Dodgers are who you want to be.
Well, you mentioned that you think that the Red Sox are a litmus test for this. So I would love to kind of get you on your way by kind of digging in on that a little bit and seeing where you think the Red Sox are in terms of organizational ambition and in terms of organizational position. But also, I want to layer on that, because I love multi-part questions that everyone else hates. You
You have always been the king. It's not just the multi-part. It's that the initial question's always so complicated that I'm trying to answer it in my head, and then you're Harvarding me on the next part too, and I'm just cooked at that point.
Well, I want to get to. I apologize for that. Yes, my kids can possibly be more frustrated with me as a human being for exactly these reasons. But people were surprised when you wrote in your evaluation of the offseason that Alex Bregman is probably going to opt out, which I was like, he has Scott Boras as an agent, and he had Scott Boras write in multiple opt-outs. Like, should we be surprised by this? And what does the Red Sox dynamic in terms of how they're approaching that question of the litmus test that you identified mean for what their future is going to be, both in terms of Alex Bregman and beyond?
Alex Bregman signed a contract that was nowhere close to what he wanted. Like, he salvaged that deal by getting the $40 million a year of average annual value and by getting those opt-outs put in. But let's not forget, Alex Bregman went into last offseason seeking $200 million or so dollars. And when it didn't materialize, he went and he took the best deal that was there. Why has anything changed in the year since, when he's had a really good season and he's made the kind of impact that he has? And I want to, like, you guys are there every day. So if I can turn this on you for a second, and then I'll answer the second part of your question, Alex. Like, Bregman's the guy in there, right?
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Tim Healy, my colleague at the Globe, just wrote a great story about the influence that he's had on the Red Sox pitching staff, which is like unheard of for a position player.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's I know you guys only had a small amount of time with Kyle Schwarber, but you see that there are certain guys who are just magnetic. They like, I'm sorry to sound like the Steve Buscemi, how are my fellow kids doing meme. They've got aura. They've got like actual aura, not like, oh, you got 1,000 points of aura. No, they have like actual aura where people are drawn to them. And so, Alex Bregman has 2 years and $80 million left on his contract. This is just a math problem, guys. If Alex Bregman is out there as a free agent, is he going to make more than 2 years and $80 million? Yes, like significantly more. And so why wouldn't he opt out? He could go back to the Red Sox if he opts out tomorrow and get that same 2-year, $80 million deal. Like, they would be happy to pay something like that, which is why I think at the end of the day, where they are, it's not going to depend on them re-signing Alex Bregman. I think the Red Sox are in such a good position right now that would he be great there? And is he the right guy to have there? Yes, unequivocally. But I think that in Roman Anthony, they have a top 15 player in baseball right now. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think it's going out on a limb a little. I don't think it's a great exaggeration, though. I mean, he was playing like it after those first few weeks. They have Garrett Crochet, who's a top 3 pitcher in baseball. I mean, it's Scooble, Skeens, and Crochet at this point, right?
Yeah. Yeah, with Wheeler injured.
With Wheeler injured, I think Crochet has ascended there. They have depth. They have young starting pitching. They have young position players. I'm not going to say that the Red Sox, if you could pick a team to start with right now, if you just had like an ownership draft, everyone just repick their teams based on both the system and what they've got at the big league level right now, I don't think the Red Sox would be number one. I think they'd probably be top 3, though.
That's a pretty good
spot. I mean, how can and guys, like, there is no better position to be in than to have real major league talent that is playing at a playoff caliber level right now and have a system that's just spitting dudes out. I mean, look at the number of guys. Like, this is one of the great rookie classes we've ever seen in baseball history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
from
absolutely.
Carlos Narvaez to Roman Anthony to Marcelo Meyer. I know Christian Campbell's not up. He's going to be back, and I still think he's going to be a very, very good and productive big leaguer. Peyton Tolley, what he could be, even Connolly Early. Like, I wasn't expecting to see him, and it's like
It's been a pretty remarkable run. I completely agree, Jeff. We are left to digest the aura of the rookie class, the aura of Alex Bregman, and we're grateful that you shared your aura with us as well. Really appreciate it and look forward to seeing you at Fenway Park this weekend, Jeff. Thanks so much for joining.
Gentlemen, enjoy the weekend. See you in the playoffs.
Be good.
3:10 to left is presented by your New England Ford dealers who've been taking everyone out to the ball game at Fenway Park for decades. Catch Ford next time you're at Fenway, including in the Ford Clubhouse, a full-service bar perfect for bringing your lineup together and for recording our live edition of 3:10 to left. It's all brought to you by your New England Ford dealers and F-Series, America's best-selling trucks for 48 years and the official truck of the Boston Red Sox.
Julian, we've had aura, we've had pillow fights. This has been a good episode, and it all sets the stage for Red Sox Yankees this weekend. So great to see you, and look forward to seeing you around Fenway Park this weekend.
I will see you guys this weekend. You guys were concerned about me. Don't worry. I was on vacation, Alex. That's why I wasn't at Fenway. I am back this weekend.
All right. Julian that's where he brings the aura. Do not mess with the man in a pillow fight. 3:10 to left, brought to you by your New England Ford dealers. We will be back next week to digest whatever the heck happens this weekend at Red Sox Yankees. Thanks for watching.